Well, I think he's going to do a little bit like what Tim Geithner, his predecessor, used to do.
That went down well.
Didn't it? Yeah, it didn't really go down very well. And I think it's very limited what the prodding of the European officials can achieve from the new US Trade Secretary, US Treasury Secretary. But the important thing is that they're establishing relationships, and I think that's probably what this trip's all about. It's about establishing relationships, and he's going to meet with, we saw Barroso there, Herman Van Rompuy, and Monetary Affairs Commissioner Olli Rehn as well. Then he's heading off to Frankfurt, and he'll talk to ECB President Mario Draghi, and he'll also take in Berlin with a meeting with Wolfgang Schäuble. So he's certainly hitting all of the key people in this in Europe at this stage.
Do you not find it slightly fascinating that he's basically giving half an hour to all the people in Brussels, then he's off to sort of talk to the serious people in Germany?
That's why I'm moving to Berlin.
Yes.
Not to Brussels. Yes. Not to Brussels, because the political power is in Berlin. But, you know, we've seen a lot of people trying to prod Berlin into doing more when it comes to stimulating growth, and we haven't seen any response. And I think it's going to be very unlikely we see any sort of response from Germany as well, particularly in an election year, in terms of stimulating the economy.
I mean, they've kind of backed off, right, in terms of deficit targets for certain peripheral countries. So we have, you know, there's austerity, but Germany is certainly on board to relaxing a bit.
They are, and we'll probably see that at the meeting at the end of this week in Dublin when the finance ministers meet. But it's true that they're backing off on the targets, but and this is something we've heard from the European Commission, they're talking more about the need to actually achieve structural budget deficit targets rather than actual budget deficit targets, because every time a country contracts, that makes it more difficult to actually achieve, you know, to look after that. So they want to make sure that structurally people are on the right track, and that's going to be the key thing for Portugal. Portugal can't renegotiate its bailout and come up with a different sort of plan, if you like. They need to stick with their plan. That's what the European Commission's indicated.
It's going to... We're in a process now of trying to figure out what happens next. And I have to say that I'm slightly sort of... We've got the ECB in the mix. We're trying to work out what it's going to do next. We've got the sort of the austerity story on the periphery of Europe. Portugal's just the latest case in point. We're trying to understand exactly kind of what the next leg is. I kind of feel we're in limbo at the moment. There's a whole series of things happening. The data's getting worse, but we don't have a coordinated response. Any sense that we're going to sort of start to get more hints?
Well, this is one of the big criticisms, isn't it, that the European response has not been coordinated. We saw that with the Cyprus bailout. It certainly wasn't coordinated, and the whole thing blew up in their faces.
We still don't understand what the banking union's going to look like.
But I do think what is interesting is what Mario Draghi started to talk about at the meeting last week, the European Central Bank meeting last week, and I wonder if indeed Financial Times has got an editorial about it, about the need for more creative thinking coming from the European Central Bank. Because the big issue here, you know, monetary transmission, yes, it's not working, but how do you get smaller companies, SMEs in the peripheral states to actually see their borrowing costs coming down, and what can actually be done? One of the suggestions I thought was interesting in the FT this morning was that perhaps the European Central Bank could start buying securitized loans of these SMEs, but then that would put the risk onto the EC balance sheet, which brings in the role of the government. No, the role of governments and maybe more flexible use of the ESM to actually stand behind the potential liabilities from taking on those sorts of loans onto the ECB balance sheet. There's lots that can be done. It's just a matter of doing it.